I'm Gina Mallon, Executive Director of the Parents League of New York, and I am here tonight with Jean Schreiber, who just delivered an excellent talk titled Minimizing Power Struggles with Toddlers and Preschool Children. Jean Schreiber is one of New York's leading authorities on early childhood education and development, and for over 2 decades, Jean has developed and directed early childhood programs and parenting centers. Thank you again, Jean, for being with us. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about some of the points you brought up tonight. And there were so many wonderful points and advice and takeaways. One issue I would love to talk about is negotiation. And I love your approach of if and then, and how to approach that in negotiation.
Sure, thank you so much for having me. I love speaking for the Parents League. So I think one of the things that parents get into when they're finding themselves in discipline problems with children is that they're really in a discipline dance, and children know exactly which button to push for which parent. They know our most vulnerable places that we don't actually like to have seen. And when we find ourselves making threats to children by saying, if you don't brush your teeth, then there's no time for a story, or if you don't put your toys away, then we can't take these toys out tomorrow, we're really teaching children to behave in a way that's holding a threat over them. And what we really want to do is we really want to let our children know that they're going to keep our attention. And if we change our language from if then to as soon as you put your toys away, we have time to read a story, or as soon as you brush your teeth, or when you brush your teeth, I can't wait to read you a story. So it does a few things. It teaches your child that they're going to keep your attention, and then they don't need to be clamoring for it. And it also changes your voice. And at the end of the day, if you feel like you've been reprimanding your child all day, it's really hard as a parent to put your child to sleep and feel that you haven't done a good job. And that also chips away at their self-esteem. So we want children to be doing the right thing because they're part of a family or part of a community, part of a classroom, and that they're doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Let's talk about transitions. As we know, transitions are hard for toddlers. So can you give us some advice about transitions? I love the story you told about the mother in Central Park leaving the park with her child on the swing. And we know how hard that can be, and you described it perfectly.
Right.
We've all been there with the arched back and trying to get the child in the stroller. So tell us that story.
Right. So transitions are really hard for children. They are, when they're playing, they're deeply involved in play. And we forget that they're not ready to move on to the next thing, and moving on to the next thing is hard for a lot of children. So giving children some warning that the transition is going to happen is always advisable, but even when that happens, children don't always want to move on to the next thing. So my story was that I was in Central Park at a playground with my granddaughter who wasn't yet 2, and there were 2 other moms with little children in the swings also, and it was getting to be dusk, and I'm listening to these moms, and I heard them both say, in 5 more pushes, we're gonna have to leave. And I'm thinking to myself, what great language to use. They're giving them everything that they need and preparing them. And of course, we know that children don't put their arms up and say, please take me out now. So the mom that had her little girl start screaming when she came over to her went ahead and picked that child up, and the child arched her back and her feet got stuck in the holes, and she carried her kicking and screaming to the stroller and had to force her into the stroller. The whole time she was saying to her, I know you don't want to leave, but it's getting late and we have to go home. And she got her buckled in, and that little girl stopped screaming as soon as the mom started pointing out the squirrels, and they left happily. And that mom had done the right thing. She had actually acted as the parent, and she had helped her child through that transition. She validated for her what she knew she didn't want to do, but she took control as the parent. And the other mom, I was still there with Lily and getting ready to leave, and the other mom was still offering 3 more pushes, 5 more pushes, and the little girl is still screaming. So that little girl was anxious, unhappy. the mom was clearly getting anxious, and it wasn't helping the child, it wasn't helping the parent. And parents need to recognize that children are here to push the boundaries, and our job as the grown-up is to set the limits. And it's very hard for parents to do that because we want our children to love us, but we have to remember that they're gonna love us better when they feel safe. And feeling safe is knowing what the expectations are.
Right. And you talked about predictability and routines. Right?
Yes, so predictability and routines really matter. Children feel safer knowing what's going to come next. And being able to understand the progression of things in their day, there's very little in a child's life that they're totally powerful of, because they're living in a busy New York City world. They're being rushed out in the morning probably to get to school. They're being, parents come home at night and they're being, rushed into bed, and they don't have the routines when they're not set for children. That's a perfect opportunity for children to be clamoring for more and more attention. And if they know that the expectations are clear-cut and we have 2 stories before bed, we, sing 1 song, and I get tucked in, then if that's a routine and it's predictable and the parent is able to follow through with it, it makes the child know what the expectation is. If the parent becomes the human slot machine and does one thing one night and one thing another night, then the child never knows what mommy or daddy really wants to please them, and children are hardwired to please us. So they need to know what the expectation is.
And can you talk a little bit about timeouts? I loved your approach to timeouts.
So timeouts are necessary in the concept of it, but the way timeouts are used can be shaming child or helping a child understand what they did wrong and helping them do it better the next time. So time away, or taking a break from the stimulus that was overwhelming for the child and they could no longer successfully be in that play scenario or whatever it was that was causing them so much dysregulation, is an important piece of what, there have to be consequences, but putting a child in timeout where they're sitting in a certain place for a specific amount of time, no child is thinking about what I did wrong and how I can do it right the next time. What they're actually thinking about is, how can I get up and get back to playing as fast as I can? So often it's the parent who really needs the time out before the child, because children need to gain their self-control from us when they're spinning out of control. And anger is contagious, and calmness is contagious. So for a parent who's responding to a child who's spinning out of control in an angry state, whether it's nonverbal anger and yelling with their eyes and their body language, is not helping a child gain the self-regulation that they need. So for a parent to calm themselves down and recognize that I need those 5 deep breaths, and then take a child away from, if they were throwing blocks, remove the child, let them know that that's not safe, and I'm going to sit here with you, and we're going to figure out a way for you to get your body calm. And there are lots of good ways to help children calm their body. It probably should be something physical, so either pushing their hands against the wall as hard as they can, or lying down on the floor and pushing their feet against the wall, helps children release that energy and tension. And then when the child has calmed themselves down, and you can talk to them about, when you were throwing those blocks, did you see so-and-so's face? They were really scared, and it broke the building, and your actions caused a reaction. So let's go back and try it again in a safe way, so that children are having the opportunity to practice what you want them to do rather than what you don't want them to do, because they're going to hold on to the negative experience. You want to undo that and make it the positive experience.
Time away.
Time away, yes.
I like that,
in
time
the
away.
presence of a caring adult.
Right. Well, we can go on more and more. I wish we had the time, but we can learn more about this topic on your website. You have a website?
Yes.
And your website is?
My name, JeanSchreiber.com.
Okay.
And people can email me through my website, and I'm happy to answer emails.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jean.
Thank you.
And for
I
being
love
such a
being
great
here.
friend of the Parents League.
Thank you so much.